Good afternoon. We will begin with the Refuge and Bodhichitta prayers as usual. O Sangye Chedan Tsoge Chonam La Chancho Bardo Dane Chapsum Je Dage Jinso Gebe Sunam Je Jola Penjir Sanje Jobar Sho Sangye Chedan Soge Chonam La Chancho Bardo Dane Chapsum Che Dage Jinso Gebe Sunam Je Dola Penjir Sanje Jobar Sho Sangye Chedang Tsoge Chonam La Chancho Pardo Dane Chapsum Je Dage Jinso Gebe Sunam Je Dola Penjir Sanje Jobar Sho Semje Tamje Dewa Dan Deve Judan Dembar Jurje Dunga Dan Dunga Je Judan Rawa Jurje Dunga Mebe Dewa Tamba Tan Minrawa Jurje Nyeren Chadan Nitan Ralve Panyon Shembola Neba Jurje. In the Dharma Expanse Palace of Akanishta is the essence of all Buddhas of the three times, who shows me directly my mind is Dharmakaya. I prostrate to the glorious exalted Guru. Please bless me and all sentient beings that our minds become the Dharma. Please bless us that the Dharma become the path. Please bless us that the path dispel confusion. Please bless us that confusion arise as wisdom. And now think to yourselves that we must, no matter what, we must bring all of our mothers, all sentient beings, as limitless as space, to the state of completely perfect Buddhahood. Excuse me. And in order to bring them to that state of completely perfect Buddhahood, we must listen to, contemplate, and meditate upon the Dharma. And so think to yourself now that we are listening with this motivation of Bodhichitta. The Dharma that we are listening to is the verses on the Treasury of Abhidharma by Vasubandhu, as explained by the Ninth Karmapa Wangchuk Dorje. Of the 8 chapters of the verses on the Treasury of Abhidharma, we are talking about the 4th, the teachings on karma. And within the teachings on karma, there is first a description of how all worlds arise from karma. Secondly, the section on the understanding of karma, and then finally, there is a short conclusion teaching the synonyms of dharmas as an overview. And so we are in the second section, the main part of the chapter, which is the understanding of karma, and that has a brief identification of karma. Volitional karma, so that's karma of mind. Volition, so volition is a mental factor that is present with every cognition we have. Anytime you think something, anytime you see and have an eye consciousness or an ear consciousness, there's an aspect of volition that is attached to that. So that's volition. That is what we have volitional karma from. It's like wanting or the desire to do something. It's kind of on a general term. Intention is specific. A volition is a little bit of a broader category than intention, or broader mental factor than intention. So that's volitional karma, and that volition, that wanting to do something, then gets us to do things, and that is intended karma, the karma of body and speech. So that's the identifying karma. And then there's the presentation of karma as which is based primarily on the teachings of the Great Exposition School, and talks a lot about perceptible and imperceptible forms, vows, and so forth. And then we get to the explanation of karma as found in the sutras. And this explanation of karma as found in the sutras has the general teachings and specific explanations. And within the general teachings, there are 4 topics: the classifying in terms of cause and result, teaching the many enumerations of karma, which karma has how many results, and other presentations of karma. So we are speaking about the second, teaching the many enumerations of karma. And in the many enumerations of karma, there is a general classifying in terms of function, and then the second is the explaining karmic paths in particular. We've completed the first. We're talking about the second, the karmic paths in particular. And that has a section on the that has 4 topics: the characteristics of each karma, how many can simultaneously engage volition, which wanderers have how many karmic paths, and teaching the results of the karmic paths. So we have completed the first, the characteristics of each karma. We completed that yesterday. And so now we are on the section describing, where is it? No, wait a minute. We aren't quite at that section. We have not quite finished. This is always the problem with these steep. It seemed so clear just a few moments ago. Now I can't even remember where we ended off yesterday. Okay. No, we didn't do that yesterday. This is where we're. Okay. Yes. So we're at the. Wait a minute. Oh yeah. Right, we are on the second. How many karmic paths can simultaneously engage volition? Sorry, sometimes we get a little bit technical, and trying to remember exactly where we are is not always so easy. So basically, this section is saying when you have volition, so every cognition has volition. There's the volition that initially gets us to do something, the volitional karma. But then also when we're doing an action, there's a mental factor of volition that's present at that time. So, or when we're engaging in one of the 10 karmic paths, I should be specific about it. So here the question is, how many karmic paths can there be simultaneously with any one given volition? You have one volition, and then out of that, with that one volition, how many acts can you do simultaneously? Right? So that's the question here. Now this is one of these things in the Abhidharma you start looking at and you think, why are they telling me this? Why is this? But the point is that if you look at it, if you begin to look at karma in detail like this, even though at first it might not seem like it has any practical, at first it doesn't seem practical. But when you start looking at it, in order to be able to really understand this, you have to be able to kind of understand what each of the karmic paths are, so that you can understand how they work together. So going through an exercise like this is actually a really interesting way of seeing how well do we understand. But it does get kind of detailed, and Wangchuk Dorje does not give a lot of the detail on it in his commentary, and so we won't go into too much detail now. This is one of those topics where for right now, when you're listening, there are going to be different levels of people are going to understand this in different ways and take different levels. And if you're sitting at home and you're thinking, oh my gosh, we're going into some great detail right here on how am I ever going to remember this? You have to remember, what is the most important thing we can get out of the study of karma right now? The most important thing we can get out of the study of karma is the certainty that karmic cause and effect gives us the opportunity to do something and to change our direction into the future. That's what's most important. If you have that certainty, if you can't remember exactly what we're talking about in a section like this one, that's not so important. Likewise, if you can remember all the details but kind of lose sight of that big picture, that's something you need to think about. That's what's most important. We need to develop that certainty in karma. So that is most important. So if you're feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm overwhelmed with the details, so now it's okay. Khenpo David says, okay, I just need to think, oh yeah, karma's fine. Do it on a kind of simple level. On the one hand, yes, but when you start looking at this, because it's easy to say, oh yes, I believe in karmic cause and effect, and a lot more difficult when you start looking at the difficult questions. So that's what we're talking about here. That's kind of a general aside. So there are 2 points here. And the first is, how many non-virtues can simultaneously engage volition, a single volition? So basically you're saying that there's a single volition that, and how many karmas can you do with one volition, or one cognition, another way of putting it. So here it says, up to 8 non-virtues and volition can simultaneously arise. So if you're doing non-virtuous actions, then you can be completing 8 karmic paths with one volition. So how is this possible? So let's read the commentary. To analyze how many karmic paths and one volition can arise simultaneously, that is to say, if you have with one volition, how many karmic paths can you do? As far as the non-virtues, because it is possible for any one of the 3 of the mind and the 7 of body and speech, either done by oneself or by ordering in others, to be completed simultaneously, from 1 up to 8 non-virtues and a single volition can arise at the same time. So here we have 8. So you have, okay, I'm going to say that you have, you can have either covetousness, malice, or wrong view, any one of the 3. So covetousness is first. So you have the covetousness. So you've got this one volition, and then you also have covetousness. And at the same time, so that's 1, right? Then at the same time, you're telling other people to kill, steal, lie, commit divisive speech, harsh speech, and idle chatter, while you are simultaneously committing sexual misconduct. That last one, sexual misconduct, you have to do yourself. Because when you tell someone else to do sexual misconduct, they're the one who experienced the pleasure. So with sexual misconduct, you can tell other people to do sexual misconduct, but it isn't included in the karmic path of sexual misconduct. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's, this is not bad. I'm going to get myself in a hole if I keep talking here. Basically, sexual misconduct, if you tell someone else to do it, it's bad, but it isn't sexual misconduct on your part. It's sexual misconduct on their part. Okay? So that's how you do 8. So how is it that you can do 1? Well, you could do 1 if you have, say, like you have just covetousness, malice, or wrong view, any one of those, right? So that makes 1, right? Or if you have malice and you kill at the same time, and then there's also volition that accompanies that, then you have 2, right? Malice and killing. Likewise, malice and harsh speech, or malice and divisive speech, or lying, or idle chatter, right? So in that way, you can have 2. And then you can also have 3 simultaneously. For example, if you have covetousness, and you are coveting your neighbor's partner, and at the same time you're telling your neighbor's partner, I love you, which you don't. That's 3, because you've got covetousness, sexual misconduct, and lying. And then you can be chattering at the same time, so you can have 3 or 4. So this is how you can get to up to 8 at any one time. So it's this is kind of, what do we say? What's this doing? Not so difficult. Let me just take a look here because, right, 3. Right, so if you have 4, like you could have the intention, you'd have the volition, and then together with that you'd say a lie and harsh words with the intention to divide people out of malice or covetousness, and so that would be like 4. Or 5 or 6 or 7, and so it's similar in that way. So then you can get up to 8 when you have other people doing them all except for sexual misconduct that you're doing yourself. Then you have 8. But you can't have 9 or 10. And the reason is that when you have the 3 of the mind, they're exclusive of each other. They don't happen simultaneously. So you can have one of those 3, but you can't have all 3 of them going at the same time. So you can be doing the 7 of body and speech, either personally or by proxy, and have one of those 3, but not 2 and not 3 of them. So that means that there's a total of 8 together. So that's for the non-virtues. Does that make sense? Okay. Well, not everyone in the studio audience is looking like they're completely convinced. So you have to think. You have to go back and think about this one and think it for yourself, and then ask questions later. And if you guys are watching at home, please do feel free to send in your questions. We haven't had so many questions recently. So then when we have, so that's the non-virtues. And so 9 or 10 cannot arise because it is impossible for the 3 of mind to arise simultaneously, and sexual misconduct cannot be completed by ordering another. So you can't have, basically it's just saying what I just explained. So how many virtues can simultaneously engage volition? When they are virtuous, up to 10. And yet not 1, not 8, and not 5. Okay. When they, the karmic paths, are virtuous, up to 10 can arise with a single volition in general. Okay, so the maximum you can have is 10. So how would you have 10? You would have the bhikshu vows with a virtuous intention. Bhikshu or bhikshuni vows. You keep the bhikshu and bhikshuni vows, and then you also have a virtuous intention. So you've got giving up the 7 of body and speech through keeping your bhikshu vows, plus you have a virtuous volition or virtuous intention. And when you have virtue, then you automatically have all 3, non-greed, non-hatred, and non-delusion. So 7 plus 3 equals 10. That's the maximum, right? And then sort of similarly to the non-virtues, you can then do subsets of this, but it is, according to the Great Exposition, you can't do 1, you can't do 8, and you can't do 5. So you could have 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, and 9, but not 1, 5, and 8. So how does that work? I'm sorry, this is where it gets, the virtues are actually, different. So the reason why you can't have 1 is that you have a virtuous intention that you automatically have. Well, you just, let's see, what would you do if you had 1? They say you can't have 1, but what if you think about it? What if you are keeping the lay precepts, one of the lay precepts, but not 4? You have taken the vow of single conduct. So you have 1 lay precept, and you have an afflicted or a neutral state of mind. Then you wouldn't have the 3 of mind. You'd only have that 1 of body or speech. So how would that not be 1? So this is an interesting question that you have to think about. We have to think about. This is why we have to go through these, to kind of think about these permutations. And so, but the basic reason given is that when you have 1, if you have 1 intention, if you have 1 volition, and it's virtuous, then you're going to have both non-greed and non-hatred. If it is mental consciousness, you will also have probably right view, right? You have the right view, so that would be 3. But if it's one of the sensory consciousnesses, then there's no view in the sensory consciousnesses, so it's only covetousness and, not covetous, non-greed and non-hatred. So you'd have those 2. And you can't have non-greed without non-hatred, and you can't have non-hatred without non-greed, so they have to go together. So that means not one. And I guess this answers my little query before. If you are keeping the one precept with an afflicted or a neutral motivation, then you don't have a virtuous volition. But you will see that it gets more difficult than that. So 2 can arise simultaneously when you have, when you are having a virtuous consciousness of the 5 sense faculties. So when you are looking at an object with the 5 sensory faculties, then you can have 2. Or the alternate for 2 is when you have an arhat who has a cognition of the knowing, extinction, and arising, which is saying that they have achieved enlightenment. Knowing, extinction, and arising is the knowledge an arhat or a Buddha has, that they have extinguished all of the defilements and that they have and that they will never arise again. So it's basically a synonym for enlightenment. So you have that mind of enlightenment. At that point, enlightenment, that knowing, extinction, and arising, is not concurrent with view. And this is in the formless realm, so that you don't have any vows. Therefore, you would have 2. Pretty specific. So arhat's in the formless realm. Okay. So the 3 would be like when you have when you have a mental consciousness that has the correct view, then you'd also have the non-greed, non-hatred, and then the right view. So then you'd have 3 simultaneously, right? Or if you have single conduct of one of the precepts plus in the 5 sensory consciousnesses, which would be without view. 4, now this is the one where it gets confusing. 4 simultaneously arising are when you someone who takes the novice or lay vows and who do the 3 virtues and abandon lying, but it's those who take these lay vows, or excuse me, the lay or the novice vows with an afflicted or non-virtuous, unvirtuous intention. So then you've got the 4 of the, 4 is some, because you have the 4 of giving up taking life, giving up sexual misconduct, giving up lying, and giving up sexual misconduct, taking that which is not given. So you have those 4, but you don't have non-greed and non-hatred because you've got either an afflicted or a neutral motivation. But here's the issue then. How is that a virtuous intention? Well, I guess probably is that keeping the precepts themselves is itself virtuous, even though the intention is not necessarily virtuous. But this is kind of something to think about. How can that actually be virtuous if the mind is not virtuous? On the other hand, we do talk about how once you have taken the lay precepts, even when you're asleep or distracted, you're still gathering the accumulation of virtues, and maybe that's what this is speaking about. But you can't do that with... the reason why you can't have 5 is that if you have the 4 of the lay precepts or the novice vows, and you have a virtuous mind state, then you're definitely going to have at least two more, non-greed and non-hatred, which means you'd go 4 plus 2 equals 6. You can't have just one, so you can't have 5. So, for that reason, you can't have 5. That's why it says not 5. When it's 7, when you have the virtuous motivation, and you take the you have the virtuous motivation, you have the 4 that you're holding as part of the novice or the lay vows, and you also have a virtuous intention. So, and this is a mental consciousness, so that you have the right view, because of non-greed, non-hatred, and non-delusion. You have all 3, and the 4 vows, that makes 7, right? Alternately, a bhikshu who takes the vows with either a neutral or afflicted motivation does not have the 3 of mind, but does have the 7 of body and speech. Right? So that's 7. However, that bhikshu who has that intention, a bhikshu who has a virtuous intention has to have at least both non-greed and non-hatred. Both of those. You can't have one of them, so therefore you can't have 8. So that's why 8 is not included. So that's our exceptions. And so with 9, would be the bhikshu who has the virtuous motivation, and be talking about their 5 sensory consciousnesses which don't have right view. So therefore, that's not there. So that means that you only have the absence of covetousness, absence of malice, and that is the 3 roots. So then, 10. The 10 arising simultaneously would be taking full ordination vows with a virtuous mental consciousness, unless you are an arhat resting in the knowing of extinction and arising, in which case you wouldn't have view. So it gets confusing. But that's how it works down. So that's all kind of detailed. So the way you can work with this is you don't have it written down here. I have to refer to my notes to keep it all straight. But just think for yourselves about the nature of each of these actions and how do they go together. With the virtuous actions, primarily what we're talking about for the virtuous actions are the actions of giving up. And giving up here, giving up taking life, giving up taking that which is not given, and so forth, doesn't just mean saying, I think I'm not going to take anything today. I'm not going to steal today. Now, if you do that as a commitment, I'm not going to, if you take like a fasting vow, that would be a commitment. Or if you make a real mid-vow, like a commitment, as we spoke about earlier, then that could be a commitment. But otherwise, just thinking, today I don't feel like it, is not giving it up. It's like a cat who is asleep has not given up killing. So when we're talking about giving them up, then we're talking about abiding by the discipline of giving them up. So that means either the fasting or the fasting vows, lay precepts, or the levels of monastic vows. So those are primarily the levels that we're talking about. So in terms of practicing the 10 virtues in the Great Exposition tradition, we are primarily talking about keeping the vows. Although there are also other actions that can be included in the 10 virtuous karmic paths, it's primarily talking about the vows. And there's a reason for this. I think a lot of people, Westerners in particular, are kind of leery about taking the vows. They're not sure they want to do it. They're not sure that it's even necessary. But when you take the vows and you keep them, they're like the basis for all the other qualities. The reason for this is that there's a difference between just not doing something and vowing, I'm not going to do it. And it's a stronger commitment. And when you engage in actions or leave the possibility of it open, then your mind is more liable to go in the direction of the afflictions. Now, of course, having vows doesn't stop the afflictions by itself, unfortunately. But it helps a little bit. You have a stronger commitment, a stronger propulsion. It helps you keep that commitment. When you don't have the vows, then you don't have that same sort of propulsion. And when you engage in some of the actions, even if you engage in some of the actions that are not necessarily so obviously destructive, they disturb your mind. They get the afflictions going. When you engage in activities that increase one affliction, then you're automatically going to help stir up all the afflictions. And so this is why it's important to kind of do what we can to give it up, to the best of your ability. So it's just important to try to keep the vows. And as I have said before, when you're talking about the lay precepts, even if you just take one, if you know that you are not going to, commit stealing, and you're not going to commit corporate blackmail or anything like that, you can keep this vow. It's not that hard. Giving up killing is, well, if you think about mosquitoes, you have to be willing to give up killing mosquitoes, and maybe that's harder for some people. But you should be able to try to at least give up one. And then if you can do that, then maybe you can take 2 later. Or maybe you can take all 5. But do consider it. Okay, so that's the section on the volitions, and I went through that here. Let me just read through Wangchuk Dorje's text for the sake of completeness. So in particular, there is not only one single karmic path and volition, because the absence of covetousness and the absence of malice come together with a virtuous mind, and there is no vow that has the nature of only abandoning one discard. This is an interesting one. That's the statement that we need to think about when you think about if you have the single conduct of a lay precept. Volition does not arise simultaneously only with 8, because a bhikshu who has abandoned 7 has 7 when he has an afflicted or neutral contemporaneous motivation. So that means at the time that the bhikshu is feeling afflictions or is asleep, they've got the 7 virtues, but they don't have the 3 of mind. And when he has a virtuous mind of the 5 sense consciousnesses, 9 greed and 9 hatred arise, so there are 9. So this is the 5 sensory consciousness. And if it is mental consciousness, there is also correct view for 10. So for bhikshus and bhikshunis, you can have 7 at all times, or 9 or 10, but not 8. It does not arise simultaneously with only 5, because if one is a novice or holds the lay precepts, it is impossible to have a single virtue of mind in addition to the 4 discards. So if you have the 4 discards, then you could have 4, and say you have the lay precepts and you're asleep, and you've got all 5 lay precepts, and you've got 4, because giving up alcohol and intoxicants is not counted as one of the 10 virtues, right? The virtuous paths. So you'd have those 4, but you wouldn't. But you couldn't have 5, because when you have a virtuous mind, if it is the sensory consciousness, then it would be 6. If it is the mind consciousness, then it would be 7. So it doesn't arise only simultaneously with only 5, because if one is a novice and holds the lay precepts, it is impossible to have a single virtue of mind in addition to the 4 discards. If it is one of the 5 sense consciousnesses, in addition to the 4 discards, there are non-greed and non-hatred, which both arise for a total of 6. Or if it is mental consciousness, in addition to those, there is also correct view for a total of 7. Okay, so that's that section. So now the question is, we've come to the 3rd of these sections on the karmic paths, and this is which wanderers can have how many karmic paths. For example, how many can humans have, how many can gods have, how many can you have in the hell realms, and so forth. And we're talking about the non-virtuous paths first. So we talk about the non-virtue and the virtue. So which have non-virtue? This has 3 points. In hell there is chatter and harsh words and malice in 2 ways, wrong view and covetousness by possession. So when you're in hell, you can have chatter, harsh words, and malice in one of 2 ways. Either you can have it manifest, that is, you can be chattering, or have malice, or speak harsh words, or it can be by possession, which means that you've got the capacity to have it, but it's not manifest. It's like when we're ordinary individuals, we have the capacity to kill people, but killing is not manifest for us right necessarily at any given moment. Like we're all sitting here. There's the capacity to kill, but it's not manifest. So that's similar in the hells. They have the capacity. They can either have it manifest, and even when it's not manifest, it's still kind of there lurking in their beings. And they have wrong view and covetousness by possession, but they don't really become manifest for reasons that we'll explain in a few moments. So how many of the virtuous and non-virtuous paths are there, both manifest and in terms of possession? So in hell, there's lamentation and wailing, so there are idle chatter, so there is idle chatter. Right? Because there's lamentation and wailing, these come out of an afflicted mind. They come out of displeasure and agony. It's like, get this away from me. And so you wail, or you say something harsh, or you insult someone. So that's the idle chatter. And there is also the harsh words of quarrels with one another, and there is the malice that motivates them. And I suppose they could be doing these all together. These three exist in the two ways of being by manifest and by possession. So manifest is they're actually doing it. Possession means they just have the potential. There is covetousness and wrong view by possession, as they have not been abandoned by an antidote, but they are not manifest. So in other words, they haven't given up covetousness, and they haven't given up wrong view, but they don't become manifest. And the reason why they don't become manifest is because the environment of hell doesn't really give them any opportunity to feel them manifestly. So, and the reason why there's no opportunity to feel them directly, the reason why they are not manifest is that it is because there are no things to desire. You're in hell. It's a terrible place. There's nothing you could want. And so therefore, you couldn't want something of someone else's because they don't have anything nice that you would possibly want. So there's no way to have covetousness manifest. If they did have something nice, you'd covet it. And karma and result are directly perceived. They can possess the wrong view, but they can also see the results of karma. When they, as it says later in the chapter, when they're first born. Is it later in this chapter? When they're first born in hell, they know the reasons why they're born there. So they understand that. And yet they can have wrong view by possession. For example, as we spoke about yesterday, they're the people who have severed the roots of virtue, who have really strong views, and who fall into the hells. They don't lose that wrong view until they die, until they end their lifetime and die in that hell, and then are reborn in some other realm. So they have that wrong view by possession, if not manifest. So then the question is, in the hell realms, what do you do in the hell realms? You kill, you steal, you do horrible things in the hell realms because people are already doing horrible things to you. So why isn't it that there isn't killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, and all the rest? Well, the reason is, killing someone in the hells, killing someone does not make them die. In order for the karmic path, in the hell realms, they're always fighting and killing, and yet, when you kill someone, that person doesn't finally die because all the hell beings, have the misfortune of experiencing the agony of dying without actually dying. So like in the reviving hell, you get killed, and then you don't die, and you get revived, and you have to go through it all over again, and it's similar in the other hill. So you don't actually die. Because the person, and then you're killing the other person in hell, but that other person doesn't actually die, so that you don't actually complete the karmic path, because in order to actually commit the karmic path of taking life, you have to actually take the life, which you can't quite do in hell, no matter how hard you try. There is no ownership of sexual partners of things. Other commentaries say that there isn't anyone that you could have sex with, basically. There's just no one attractive that you would want to be able to. So forget about sexual misconduct. There's just no sexual conduct in hell. Or here, it's also said in terms of no one is considered anyone else's partner because they're not considered anyone's partner. If you could even actually get to the point of engaging in sexual activity, it wouldn't be sexual misconduct. But when you're in the Shamali hell, where you see the lovers on the top of the hill, and you want to go and have sexual activity with them, you try to go, and you get pierced by the long iron thorns on the trees. And when you finally get up to the top, you find that your lovers have gone down to the bottom, and so there's just no opportunity. Stealing, you can only steal things that people actually think are theirs, and no one has anything that they actually want in hell. So how can you steal anything? It's like everyone's thinking, it's a piece of garbage, you can take it if you want, but it's no good for anyone. So why bother stealing? But then they're going to get angry at you anyways. So that's the three of body. So you can't kill, you can't steal, and you can't commit sexual misconduct in hell. Then in terms of those of speech, there is no need to lie. So we have four of speech, right? You can have idle chatter and harsh words. Those are probably quite frequent, but there's no lying. And the reason is there's absolutely no reason to lie in the hells. It's just so horrible anyways. Why would you bother even lying? And there is no one near to anyone's heart, so everyone is already divided. So if you're going to have divisive speech, people have to be friends. But no one has any friends in hell. And so there's no way that you can divide anyone because they're already split up. And, everyone's pretty much ready to be at anyone's throat and at any moment. So for that reason, the five from taking life to divisive speech are not manifestly present, nor is there any attainment of them. So that's how it is in the hell. In the hells, there are three that can be manifest, and then two that are only there by possession. The other five are not there. So this is the situation in the hells. And then the question is, with non-virtue, well, what about the other parts? Well, the next one that's got exceptions is the humans on the northern continent of unpleasant sound. There are three in unpleasant sound. The seventh is manifest there too. So there are three of mind that are possessed in unpleasant sound, but they're not manifest. So the three of mind are covetousness, malice, and wrong view. So the humans who are born in unpleasant sound haven't given them up. So they still possess them, but there's no way for them to become manifest. And the reason why there's no way for them to become manifest is because basically, what do we say? Unpleasant sound is like the utopian commune that all those, that all the utopian writers have ever dreamed about, better than any utopia that you could possibly write about if you're thinking in that way. There is no clinging to mind. The communists would love it there. The communitarians would love it there. There's no clinging to mind, and anything is mine, so you don't think of either things as being your own things. Someone wants something, hey, yeah, use it, sure, it's fine. And you don't think about people as being your partner. And so there's no sexual misconduct, because no one has any idea of there being one partner or another. Their beings are gentle, so they don't have any, because they don't care. Like everyone's just enjoying it. It's like I don't know. The hippies, the best hippie commune you could possibly imagine. Everyone's gentle and kind, and there's nothing cruel. Of course, I realize that there are some hippies who are listening to these teachings now. Their beings are gentle. There's nothing cruel. And they do not have sinful intentions. It just sounds great there, doesn't it? The seventh, idle chatter, singing songs out of desire and so forth, is manifest there. They do sing Grateful Dead songs, I imagine. Oh, what a then in pleasant sound too. Okay, so the seventh. So the only one that's manifest is idle chatter because they can sing songs, and they do that to kind of attract and amuse and so forth. Not for any trickery or anything, it's just to amuse each other. And so that's kind of a little bit of desire. It's not like the desire you want to take something from someone. It's just like we want to feel pleasure. And so we sing songs and feel pleasure. The other six of taking life and so forth are not manifest. So the taking life, everyone has a fixed lifespan of 1,000 years, and there's no untimely death. Even if you tried, you couldn't kill them. But you wouldn't want to, and the reason you wouldn't want to is they do not have sinful intentions. That's the first one. Then lifespan is definite. And the third is that there is no ownership of sexual partners or things. And so there's also no need to lie. There's no desire, since there are no sinful intentions, there's no wish to say any harsh speech or divisive speech. And then when you get to sexual activity, all I have to do is read this one, it's enough. I don't need to explain it. The words are clear enough. Whoever wishes to behave impurely takes the hand of the woman or man he or she desires and goes to a tree. If she or he is someone who may be lain with, the tree screens them and they lie together. And if not, the tree does not screen them and they do not. So that is how it is in the unpleasant land. Sounds nice until you think about what happens after the 1,000 years are done. So that's the hells and the unpleasant sound. Well, what about the rest of the desire realm? Elsewhere in desire, the 10 non-virtues. So basically, everywhere else in the desire realm, the other 3 continents of humans, the gods, the animals, the hungry ghosts, those places, you can have all 10 non-virtues, both by manifest and by possession. So elsewhere in other desire realms, excluding the hells and unpleasant sound, the 10 non-virtuous karmic paths are present both manifestly and by possession. That is, you can either actually do them, or you can be a couch potato and do nothing and yet still have them by possession, right, if you haven't given them up. Among animals, hungry ghosts, and gods, they are included in the non-virtuous mid-vow. So animals, hungry ghosts, and gods can also have the mid-vow. That is the temporary or the shorter commitment to do something wrong. So like the feeling, I'm going to get revenge and kill this person or steal something. That would then end when that commitment is either fulfilled or no longer possible. And among humans, they can also be included in wrong vows. So wrong vows are those long-term commitments like that would last your entire life to perform unvirtuous actions. Now in the God realms, well, what about gods? Can the gods kill? The answer is, gods do not kill gods, but they do kill hungry ghosts and other wanderers. So they can commit killing because they can commit the beings in the other classes of samsara, they say. This is the main position of the Great Exposition School. Others say that gods do not kill gods because when the gods and demigods battle, if the limbs and torso are cut, they rejuvenate. But if the head or neck is cut, it cannot be healed and they die. So in other words, if you decapitate a god, then the god will die. And so if the gods engage in battle with each other and one is decapitated, that god is killed and the person who killed them has committed the karmic path of killing, or the other god that has killed them. I think it would be pretty difficult for humans to kill gods. If we can't even see them, how can we kill them? Now, in the form and formless realm, how many non-virtuous paths could we have? I don't think we could really have any of them, could we? Non-virtue is only in the desire realm, right? So which have virtue? So who has virtue? So this has two topics, where the three of mind are and where the seven of body and speech are. The three virtues are in all by way of being possessed or manifest. The three virtues of mind, that is the absence of covetousness, the absence of malice, and the absence of wrong view or right view, are present in all realms and all five wanders by way of being possessed or by being manifest. So in any of them, you can have these three virtuous karmic paths, the absence of covetousness and so forth. Now, in the hells, it is probably difficult to manifest them. For humans, it's difficult to manifest them sometimes. But it is possible, and so therefore they can be either possessed or manifest. Then where the seven of body and speech are, and this has two topics as well, how many there are in formless and conception-free, and how many there are among other wanderers. And so these are different because in formless and conception-free, you've got particular, in the formless you have no form, and in conception-free you have no mind or mental factors. So sentient beings in conception-free. So to remind you, the conception-free is a particular realm of dhyana where beings who have achieved the worldly conception-free absorption are reborn after they pass away from the desire realm. So this is a type of meditation where mind and mental factors completely cease. It's kind of like a blank state. You go into this blank state, you don't even know that time has passed, because it's so blank. And then you are reborn in the conception-free, and you have this incredibly long lifespan that you don't even enjoy because you're not aware of it, because there's no mind and mental factors. So that's the conception-free. And then the formless realms, we've talked about these quite a bit, have the seven karmic paths of body and speech by possession. So they only have them in terms of possession. They can't be manifest in conception-free because they aren't able to actually do anything because they haven't got any mind or mental factors. And in formless because you can't do actions of body and speech if you don't have a body and speech. Right? Okay. These beings, in conception-free and formless, they have either the dhyana or the undefiled vows, because beings born in the formless possess the past and future undefiled vows, and those because beings born in conception-free have the vows of dhyana. So the vows of dhyana are the natural restraints that keep you from, they're free of desire for the desire realm, and so therefore they're automatically not going to do these actions. So they're in a state of dhyana, they have this vow in the conception-free, but they're not present because at the moment they don't have mind, they have past and future. Similarly, in the formless realm, the nobles in the formless realm have the undefiled vows and they will not engage in any of those. But they're not presently manifest because there's no body and speech. And as a conjunction with the next line, they're always so thorough in these commentaries to say that they have to explain every word, which means even when you have a word like "and," you have to say, this is a conjunction if you've got nothing else to say. Okay, so how many there are among other wanderers? This has 2 points. In the rest, they're manifest as well. In the rest, that is, in the realms and wanderers other than formless and conception-free, they, the seven karmic paths, are manifest as well. In other words, so in the form realm and in the desire realm, like the seven virtuous karmic paths can be manifest as well. So everyone has them by possession, or can have them by possession, but they can also be manifest. So among animals and hungry ghosts, there are those except for the ones included in vows. So they can have ones that are included in mid-vows, and so forth, but they can't have vows, as we spoke about before. In the form realm, there are those that are included in the vows of dhyana, as we just mentioned with the concept tree. And except for the gods in the northern unpleasant sound, there are both of those in vows and in the mid-vows. So there might be any of the three vows. Right. So basically, the sentient beings in the desire realm can have any of the 7 virtuous actions, except in hell and unpleasant sound. However, this is except for in hell and unpleasant sound because there is no correctly undertaken discipline there. So they cannot have manifest, they can have them by possession. In other words, you can say that those beings in hell, were they in a different situation, could have the potential for it. They aren't completely gone. They have the potential, they have that possession, but they cannot manifest because of the environment. So at this point, what I'd like to do, tomorrow we're going to be discussing the different types of results of karmic paths. And in order to understand that, we have to remember a little bit about, or we have to know something about the types of results that you can have from actions. And this is something that is covered in Chapter 2 of the Treasury of Abhidharma, and then not, of course, described again here in detail because it's already been taught. So, since there are people who, what do we say? Some people might need a refresher, and some people just might have never heard. Let's review the teachings on the different types of results. So, if you have this book, then you can turn to page 194. If you have the e-book edition, this is at the end of the 2nd chapter. So it's actually easiest if you have the e-book to go to the 3rd chapter and then page back until you get to verse 57. So if you have the PDFs we posted online this year, I'm sorry, we didn't include this chapter. But you can just listen. So basically, when we're talking about the types of results any type of phenomena can have a number of results. And if you think about it, let's kind of take like an example of a tree, like an oak tree. An oak tree is a phenomenon, and it can have many different types of causes. Or let's take the result of planting an acorn, right? So when you plant an acorn, there are a bunch of different results that come from it. Obviously, you've got the tree that grows out of it, right? That's one result. That's kind of manifested. Then you've also got, the roots of the tree grow and they kind of aerate the soil. Now, all of you botanists, please give me a break here because I'm going to say something that's totally ridiculous if you're actually a scientist. But they kind of go through and they hold the soil in place and keep it from falling and keep the the slopes from collapsing and all this. And so the roots do things, and then it has acorns every year that feed squirrels, and some of them grow and make new trees. And so, and then it also absorbs carbon dioxide and emits oxygen and does all sorts of other things, and it makes people who sit underneath them feel happy and pleasant. And so there are all sorts of results that come from planting a single seed. So what we can see from this is that anything we do has a whole bunch of different types of results that come out of it. So any action has a number of different types of results. Thus far in this chapter, we've primarily been talking about the fully ripened result. This is kind of the most important one because it's the one that determines the experiences you're going to have, where you're going to be reborn, the experiences many of the experiences you will have after rebirth, but not all of them, and so forth. So that's the first one, is the fully ripened result. And the important thing to realize about the fully ripened result is that it is neutral, and that it is not virtuous, and it is not afflicted. So it's a neutral, it's ethically neutral. And it's something that only happens to sentient beings. So it's not like, when I give the example of a tree, and a tree has an acorn, and that acorn then grows into a tree, you can't say that's the fully ripened result of the tree, because the tree is not a sentient being, at least according to Buddhism. I know that some of you feel differently. So that's the thing. And then the important thing about the fully ripened result is that it is primarily a feeling. It is a sensation that you experience. Now, we spoke about this the other day when we talked about the 5 ways that karma is experienced as in terms of the feeling, in terms of, where did we get to on that one? I'll go back to there just so I get it right. It can be either the inherent or the concurrent, through focus or as full ripening or directly manifesting. So these are the different types of results, but the primary one is feeling, experience. That's the inherent nature of full ripening of karma. And the other thing is that it has to happen later than its cause. Actually, all of the results have to happen later than their causes. So that's the fully ripened result. So that's an important one, but it's not the only result of karma. Just as like when you plant an acorn and it grows an oak tree, there are many other results. There are also other results that come from it, come from that action. So the next type of result that is important for us is called the causally compatible result. And this is a result that is like its cause. It's similar to its cause. So when we talk about it as the causally compatible result, this is a literal translation of the Tibetan term jutungyejebu. It means that it's similar or compatible. It's like if the cause is virtuous, then the result is going to be virtuous. If the cause is in the form realm, the result is going to be in the form realm. If the cause is afflicted, then the result, they're in the same class, the same type. As it. And so it's going to be on the same, similar continuum, similar level, and in terms of being afflicted or not. So that's the other important one in terms of karma. Now, when we talk about it, that's how it's described in the 2nd chapter. But when we get to it in this chapter on karma, it's a little bit different. And what we're primarily talking about is results that are like the cause. And so we'll explain a little bit about that more tomorrow, but that's a second type of one that's important from us. That is called the compatible cause. And then the third one that we need to go over now is the dominant result. So we have the fully ripened, the compatible, and the dominant. So the dominant result is, according to the 2nd chapter, it is any composite that is not previous to the phenomenon. So, for example, if you plant an acorn today and you later on cook an omelet, the omelet is a dominant result of planting an acorn, which when you first think about it seems really strange. How is that a result? So what it actually is kind of talking about, this is a very strange, when he's saying anything later. So this is the general description of what we mean by a dominant result. But it's actually kind of a profound idea because it talks about how, it seems to point out how everything is actually interrelated. We have so many different things, and there's some sort of relation that anything that happens is going to have, by some strange sequence of causes and effects, it's going to have some relation to things, anything that happens after it. And so in this way, you might not be able to directly see that result, but it is possible that there is likely that there is some connection, however tenuous it might be, like the idea of all people being linked by at least, 7 or 11 different, it's similar to that there's some link between everyone on this planet by either 7 or 11 different, I don't remember the number, different links. So it's similar with these results, saying that there's some link of causation that goes between any phenomena and anything that happens after it. But what we mean in terms of karma are basically all of those results that kind of happen that aren't like directly, that's sort of the environment around you that comes out of it. You can't say that it's direct, you can't say that it's like a fully ripened or a compatible result, but it's like the environment that you're born in. So this is the dominant result. So this is why when we talk about like when you kill, The fully ripened result is being reborn in hell, and in the rare chance that you were born as a human, then you might be born in like a desolate place where there's nothing good and you're just starving. Because there's nothing around, because you've destroyed the vigor of someone else, and so therefore the dominant result of that is similar, that you're in a place where there's no vigor, no life force. So that's the result. So those are the three main types of results that we have to talk about. We've got the fully ripened result, we've got the compatible result, causally compatible result, and we have the dominant results. So those are the three main types of results. So we'll speak about those more in relation to karmas tomorrow. And so at this point, we will now dedicate the merit of teaching and listening to the Dharma to the benefit of all sentient beings, so that they may be freed of all suffering and until such a time as they achieve Buddhahood, may they always enjoy great splendor. Wasanam de tham che se pani tomne nye pedranam pam chene kegana chi bala trubai Sibe zole dro wa dro wa sho. Thank you.